So on the one hand, we've got the do-it-yourself model, the self-service, which is what our original model was. Now going into 2026, we've now got a managed service side, which is called Rupert Connect. Both are going to be vital for us moving forward, but the question is, how do we balance them? Our original version was Rupert version 1, and it was, in hindsight, easily scalable, and we didn't have to have a huge team managing clients, because typically with SaaS businesses you can have 150 clients for one customer service agent. So if you look at that as a scalable model, it's obscene, right? You could have 1,000 customers and 2 or 3, maybe 4 customer service teams, which is crazy. These things are slow to start off unless you're very lucky. The reason why they're so exciting is that they're actually very profitable. Because although you've got the upfront costs once the platform's built and you're just maintaining it, you haven't got that sort of big expense with staff now in the UK, PAYE, NI, office space, ratables. I could just go on and on and on and on and on. As long as you're keeping that customer for a long period of time and it probably 10x's your cost per acquisition, you've got a very, very long-term scalable business then, which is very scalable, which is fantastic. So that's the sort of what was going to be our bread and butter. The problem with the Rupert Connect model, which is the managed service or agency model, is that we're going to be doing that work for them. Although we'll be doing a lot of different things rather than just responding to every comment, we still need humans to do the work and sign everything off. Rather than having 150 clients to one customer service agent, for one client, they're going to have an account manager and potentially a community manager. And that one account manager might be able to look after 6 accounts. I don't know the figures yet, but then we might, for those 6 accounts, need 2 community service managers. So then you look at it where you've got 4 heads counts there. You've got 6 clients, a cost per acquisition cost, which will be higher because they're a bigger client, that's why it works. So then you start looking at the profitability of that versus the SaaS model and go, well, SaaS is clearly the better way to go, right? The problem is it's harder. So it might be that we use the SaaS service just to open the door and put the door ajar so we can then go on with Rupert Connect, or we just have them as a Connect client, or we just have them as a Rupert version 1 sort of SaaS model client. The Rupert Connect managed service model is going to be a lot more viable for those that have a bigger turnover and just a bigger brand in general, right? Because the fees there are in the thousands opposed to the SaaS model, which is going to be in the hundreds, low hundreds, which is fine. The SaaS model can stem across all of them. You know, we can sell that across to Brewdog, to Garden Centre down the road, whereas Rupert Connect, this managed service model, that might only be applicable and viable for 3% of the market. Ideally, you'd have everyone on the SaaS model and everyone would be happy, but because the revenues are so high with the managed service, means that you can start moving money, and the bigger your turnover, the more risky you can get. Well, rather than worrying about events, we'll do every event, because all we need is contracts to continue for another 4 months and it's already paid for. The key with, again, having more revenue is that we can go, okay, well, if 5 clients pay $5,000 a month, they win the month. All our wages don't go out for the end of that month. You've got 30 days plus the profit to use to then make sure that you keep going, which is why when you've got bigger revenues, you can actually then leverage it better, which is great. Although service isn't always great in terms of profitability, when you use that money to leverage yourselves to grow, that's where you find some companies can grow very, very quickly. For us, it'd be how can we win more business? The problem with these 2 different strands of the business is that they both require very different things. The management needs to be different because, as I've mentioned before, actually the volume people you need for the managed service versus a SaaS is very, very different. SaaS can, not entirely, but it can sort of run on its own. It still needs supervision, but it can sort of just run in the background because it's basically doing the work for you, which is brilliant. What you need to do is find the customers and make sure your churn rate is low. So things like paid ads, emails, referrals, partnerships. So that's, from a SaaS perspective. When it comes to the managed service side, you need volume of people. You need a lot more people to make it work. My sort of slight concern is that will one overtake the other? So will the SaaS produce more revenue than the managed service, or than Rupert Connect do more on the SaaS? Ideally, you'd want it more weighted towards the SaaS model because there's more margin in it. But as I've said previously, you need to sort of follow where the money goes. It might be that actually there just isn't enough on the SaaS side, so we need to really push to the Connect side. That's my slight concern, that we've really sort of heavily weighted towards one. From our calls, my calls, probably over the last 5 days, have all been balanced towards and weighted towards the SaaS option. We've increased our costs slightly and we're getting a lot better types of clients. So we've had a big cruise company, we've had a big artist, actually the number one artist in the UK today. Their firm have reached out to us, which is great. So we're actually going to do a proof of concept for them. So we plug in for 30 days and we sort of showcase actually why they need the product, which is a really nice way of sort of selling it in, rather than it just being, this is the price, let's go in. Obviously from a Connect side, you can't do that because you've got boots on the ground. You could be really, really bullish and say, let's do a free trial of a week, but you'd be really hanging your hat on then, and your cost per acquisition would go through the roof. From a dev perspective, it won't matter too much because everything's already set up. So apart from a queuing system, which will need to be tweaked for Connect, we're pretty much there to go. From a dev perspective, we're very lucky. Obviously, we spent so much time on developing this product and making sure that it is fit for market. There's only a few slight tweaks we need to do for Connect, which we've pretty much already done. One of the issues I've got from a positioning perspective is, what are we known for? Is it Rupert SaaS or is it Rupert Connect? Because they're two very, very different services. So I want to make sure that we're not talking so much about Connect, and I think that's the route we're going to go down. Keep going down the SaaS and just find opportunities. Obviously, once people are starting using Rupert, is there an opportunity to upsell them into the managed service, which we've found a couple already. Obviously, they haven't gone ahead because they've already got solutions in place, but that'll be, I think, longer term, that'll be a really nice generator and a lead gen. And again, it's a really nice sort of entry level into our sales ladder, which is using the SaaS platform at a lot cheaper rate than just going straight in for the managed service. The biggest danger that I can think of at the moment is having two average services and not one great one. So although we've sort of brought out Rupert Connect to be that differentiator between us and other people in the market, we need to make sure that we're not jack of all trades, master of none. We need to make sure that that we are really known for comment management, whether that be via the SaaS or via Rupert Connect. So how do we ensure that one side of the business won't overshadow the other? God, how do we do that? Well, I guess the first thing is, from a SaaS perspective, now the system's robust, there's very few bugs, it works, it's great. That now is just how do we drive traffic from said location to the free trial, right? When it comes to the managed service and like the outreach program we're doing, we can staff around contracts. Unlike the SaaS where you've got to build it and they will come, when it comes to sort of agency contracts, is you can win the contract and then build it around the contract, because typically you'll have like a 4 to 6 week onboarding process. We can work around the staffing and starting recruiting when you've won the contract. We're lucky we've got a couple of members of staff who can jump on it in the early stages, which is good from a separation perspective. It means the whole team's involved in the early stages for when we grow. So if people need to jump onto different things, again, we're very lucky that they sort of understand the entirety of the business, which is great. Everyone in the business knows what's going on. We can execute, which is most important. We want to be able to execute for our clients so that they're producing revenue. This isn't a cost, this is an investment. So that's the sort of how we're going to hopefully navigate this internally. But the key is balance. We can't go out and win 1 million contracts tomorrow. Obviously, if we did, we'd work around even if we were to win 3 contracts tomorrow, we have the staff internally to be able to execute for clients, which is fantastic, and we're very lucky. For me personally, is it going to be hard to balance it? I won't say massively. When I was doing both MIB and LRS, when I look back now, I couldn't believe how much work I was doing. It was stupid. I look back now and just go, I don't know how both of those were doing what they were doing. So that doesn't worry me too much, because we're lucky that the SaaS, it does just run itself really. And we get probably 1 support ticket every other week, so like 2 a month, which is great, right? That's testament to the platform. So once they're plugged in, they're paying, they just stay, which is great. Where it's going to be a little bit stressful in the early stages, when we start winning some of these outreach projects, there's a lot of work to be done with this in the early stages. There's going to be some balancing act between me, the CTO, Tim, how we deliver some of the data analysis with Gareth. So there's a few moving parts on that pieces, which I'm not worried about, because we'll deliver, right? We execute is what we do, but there's going to be some balancing. But again, it all comes down to process. What I've been working on since sort of early December is how do we process this out? We've processed enough that we're executing efficiently, but there's enough process that we can be agile. I think I mentioned this in the past. One of our client stuff goes viral and we are managing it for them. We need to be agile enough to be able to have the processes to execute for them and actually deliver what we do. And that's what I want us to do. I want us to really make sure that we can just deliver. There'll always be mistakes. That's the reality. The lovely thing with the managed services and the Rupert SaaS platform is that the tech is 95% of it. So as long as that tech is robust, we are okay. If the tech falls down, house of cards, we're all up shit creek.